to our final Center for Music Education workshop of September 2023. We still have 2 others this semester. We have one in October and one in November, so don't drop off yet. But this is our last one for September, and we're glad to have David DeStafano, who has been an elementary music teacher for 27 years and is a very active member of the Atlanta Area Orff Association. And he's going to share his expertise on being a male elementary music educator, because sometimes we consider elementary music to be a female profession, and we've even talked to David and I about the voice range, and just the differences that men have when they teach little children. So, all right, thank you, David.
Sure. I'm going to go ahead and try to share my screen again. Practice will make it better. I'm going to just go for it's happening.
Yay.
Yay. And okay, so welcome to Perspectives of a Male Elementary Music Teacher. In preparing this PowerPoint the other day, I actually subtitled it Real Men Teach EGM, but I took that away because I don't think it sounded very professional. I'm the K-5 music teacher at Graveville Crossing Elementary School, which is in North Fulton County outside of Atlanta. And I am in the MMED program with Dr. Holmes-Davis, and hope to be walking in May and finishing up next summer. So here we go. Will it work now? I gotta click it. Okay. A little background about me. I majored in clarinet and fully intended to be a band director, as most instrumental folks do. My undergraduate training provided very limited experience with elementary general music, EGM, and that was part of my research for the research class last year. And I student taught 5th through 12th grade band, and as I was student teaching, I started to realize I had a natural affinity for working with younger students. And it's funny to me that the youngest of my student teaching were 5th grade, and now those are my oldest students. But it just kind of stood out to me in that regard. But the teaching certificate in most states is K through 12. You can teach anything music. Don't try and make me teach high school orchestra. It would not go well. Your students would not learn much. But I interviewed for high school band jobs, middle school band jobs, beginning band jobs, elementary jobs, just whatever, because I needed a job. And in 1997, before many of you were born, I accepted a job teaching K through 5 elementary music, and I fell in love with it. Despite my limited experience and a lot of trials and tribulations, I fell in love with the job. It just really was my jam, as they say. So I set out to get better at teaching EGM. Luckily, the start of my career started out in Pasco County, Florida, which is just north of Tampa. And there was back then a good number of district in-services for elementary music. So I attended those and learned a lot. The emphasis my first year was on pre-K music, which was a whole new thing. And I was the guy that was tapped to go in once a week to the preschool rooms and do something, just sing a song, whatever, figure it out. I also talked a lot with colleagues at those meetings during lunches and in between activities to gain ideas. And you have to understand, this is pre-social media, and internet was kind of in its infancy, really. So networking with people real live and in person was what I had to do. I found out about my local Orff chapter, and that was very helpful because it was hands-on and gave me lots of ideas to try out. And Sometimes they worked and sometimes they didn't, but it was a learning experience. Um, State MEA conference, FMEA luckily met in Tampa, so it wasn't far away for me. And just like with Georgia Music Educators Association, there is an elementary track. So I was able to attend just elementary specific sessions with a lot of great presenters, learned a lot. And then after a few years, I started my ORF levels training. Um, and in the process, I ended up moving to California and ended up just luckily my local ORF levels were the San Francisco International ORF course. And if you know anything about ORF levels, they are world-renowned presenters. And I didn't know any better. It's just, oh, I'm taking ORF with Doug Goodkin. I didn't know he wrote 6 books, you know. It was just lucky. And I was encouraged before moving from Florida by the art teacher that I worked with that I should pursue my national board teacher certification. At the time, that was kind of a bigger deal than it is now. And there is financial incentive to get it. So I did a lot of work, and that's a little bit about me. I don't want to get too much into just about me, but want to get more into specifically the male EGM part. So I'm going to do a compare contrast to when I started teaching and things I noticed specifically from a male perspective. When I started in 1997, there were very few male EGM teachers. We were kind of like the unicorns of the group, that we were rare and special. Um, the Many of the EGM teachers that I worked with at that time did not really want to be elementary teachers. It was just a job they had, and they were waiting to get that band position that they really wanted to do. They were sadly just going through the motions. They did not feel the need to learn about proper pedagogy for younger students, and they approached teaching EGM for more of a band director, ensemble director uh, modality, which is not appropriate for teaching little kids, in my opinion. And now, can I click the next slide? Yes, I can. Cool. Um, Compare that to now. There are many more male elementary teachers, luckily. Um, Many of them chose to teach elementary. They had that option, they had that background. They said, no, I want to do this. They are committed to professional development. Even though they're not quite as, they're still the minority. There's not a bunch of guys at the ORF workshops, but there's a lot more of us. And most of my colleagues know about the different pedagogies, the major ones, Orff, Kodai, Dalcroze, and Gordon. And that's a good trend. And I can't quite explain why, but I think just public perception and social climate has changed significantly in the past 27 years. So that's something to think about. Uh, Let's just gonna scooch this over. So the way I'm thinking about teaching, being a male elementary music teacher, there are challenges to that, obviously, but also along the way there are opportunities that being a man offers versus being a woman. And then there's also some resources that I will share with you. So here we go with challenges. The biggie, and I talked to a few of my friends about this, the biggie is vocal modeling. I'm a man with a changed voice. I'm a baritone bordering on bass, depending on the time of day. And even though I try to be a tenor, it doesn't always work out that way. Dr. HD and I have talked about this before, the controversy regarding falsetto. And I'm opinionated in that way, but let me just go through my list. So a lot of men I know are uncomfortable with their singing voice because they did come from more of a band or so background. Um, Vocalists are, of course, more comfortable with their voice, but a lot of instrumental people come into EGM and may not be as comfortable with their voice. My suggestion would be to join a community chorus or church choir and just sing, get used to it because it's something you're going to do every day. Even back when I was applying for national board certification, I remember asking whether I should apply for vocal or instrumental because in my elementary job, I sort of do both. Um, but the person said, well, do you teach, you know, drumming every day? And I said, well, no. And she says, do you sing every day? And I said, yes. And she said, apply for vocal. That's what you do. And I had to just kind of adjust my own mindset that I am a vocal music teacher. And even though my background was not that, that's what I am doing and have been doing for nearly 30 years. So falsetto, um, there are pros and cons to it. The pro is that it provides the correct pitch for students, the correct voice. Um, the con is that it can confuse students. Just the other day in my own chorus, who have heard me sing in falsetto, I was demonstrating something and they sang back to me an octave higher than me, even though I was singing in their range. And I had to stop and say, no, match me. And I tried again, and they again sang an octave higher than me because I don't use my falsetto that often. I have it in my pocket, use it when I need it. And then when I went back to my natural voice, they sang correctly. So it was confusing for them because they hadn't heard me sing in falsetto in a while. Um, One of my colleagues said that he used falsetto with his students, and he would take his chorus to LGPE and would get comments that they did not have a warm tone quality, that they had a strident tone because he was modeling a falsetto, and they were emulating that type of voice. Um, and if you do use falsetto, like my tip is use it when you need it. Um, Gauge your students. Some, like even kindergartners, I have 3 kindergarten classes that sing beautifully in their head voice, even though I sing in my natural voice. I have one class that I use some of the tips that are presented next, and one that I had to sing in falsetto. So I think kind of knowing your students is a good thing because falsetto used a lot can cause vocal fatigue. Um, like you would do anyway as a vocalist. Drink water, keep your vocal cords lubricated. And I have this sickness of talking too much. So, but Dr. HD and I can relate. Um, yeah. Um, so just take care of your voice and try to avoid that. There are ways around falsetto. Um, Alternatives to that provide point out a student who is using the appropriate voice. There are some in every class, there's that one awesome singer. And you could say, oh, I noticed how Tina is singing so beautifully. I would like more of you to sing like Tina. And even though they might not hear Tina, they're going to want to get that compliment and they're going to start figuring it out. And then ooh, I noticed some more singers over there, and that sort of thing encourages your students and they pick up on it. Um, Another thing, I'm an instrumentalist and I'm a recorder nut. So I have used recorder to help students sing on pitch. Um, the caveat with that is that some of them want to start whistling or hooting at you. And I say, no, just match the sound. This is to help you sing. And it's kind of trial and error there. And there are also good quality recordings of children singing children's songs that you can use. Um, in my opinion, the child modeling is the best. Um, and as Dr. Feyerabend has said, sing for the children and not with the children, so that again you can avoid your vocal fatigue, but also so that they can become independent at singing. The alternatives with recorder and recordings and even playing on piano, that is a bit of a crutch. And again, there I would use it sparingly so that they can be more vocally independent. Um, and I just tapped on the goal is for them to develop their vocal independence. Um, Generally, in my experience, by second grade, students should be able to understand the teacher voice versus children's voice, sometimes younger, sometimes older, but it really depends on individual classes. Like I said with my chorus, but falsetto messed them up the other day. And I said, okay, I won't do that again. Not for a while. Um, there are other challenges. Um, the mindset. I touched on this earlier. A lot of male elementary music teachers and just, instrumental music teachers in general come to teaching EGM with like an ensemble director mindset. Um, the ensemble director is focused on skills and performance and specific, um, in a specific way, getting ready for that concert. Um, because that's what most band and orchestra and choir directors do. Yes, you're building skills and touching on standards, but the end goal is the performance. Elementary is not structured that way most of the time. So you need to adjust that band director mindset and the expectations to the level of elementary students and what they are able to do. The EGM student really should be a wider focus, in my opinion, to include so much variety of music making, including singing, playing instruments, movement, listening, playing, making a playful, enjoyable experience for students. The one thing I love about teaching EGM is the tremendous variety of ways of teaching any given skill or standard, and how one song or activity can touch on so many different standards all at once. Um, so that's just one kind of challenge, is to adjust your mindset. Um, I know at Georgia College undergrad with Dr. HD, students are given up experiences in elementary and secondary. Not all universities do that. I come from a background where that was not an option for me. And that again was part of my research last year. So just wanted to put that out there. Um, okay, so here's the one. I don't really have a problem with the gender dynamic of working with mostly women, but some of my colleagues have pointed that out, that just, you know, working with mostly women can be very different. And women sometimes approach teaching and handling children in a different way than I might. Um, a lot of typical male would be perceived as more strict or authoritarian or less nurturing with students. But I don't see that. I think that's an old stereotype. Um, you know, anymore, maybe 27 years ago, that was more true. But now that times have changed, Men and women are on fairly equal footing in that ground, in my opinion, and in education especially. There is the social dynamic being the one or of a handful of men in a building with all women. Um, I'm okay with that. I have a lot of women friends, and I'm just more comfortable that way. But some people might say, okay, I'm just gonna eat lunch in my classroom because I don't want to get involved in all that woman talk. One of my colleagues commented that he knows more about um, women's bodies than he ever expected to because of lunchtime conversations. And I said, okay, thank you. That was really helpful.
David, can I?
Yes.
Actually, I want to interject two quick things. My husband is the nurturer in my home. Like I am nurturing, but he is the nurturer. And the other
Okay.
thing is that women dynamic is exactly why I went back to middle school. And I couldn't teach because I'm not programmed for that. So I think it's funny that we look at it as a gendered issue and it may just be a personality issue. Like you said, it's less than it used to be.
Right. And for me, I think it's kind of both. It's a personality thing. Like my personality is just more suited to elementary, and I get along with women really well. There might be other men out there who have to make that mental flip and just get used to working with women. I mean, I have four sisters, so I'm used to it. Yeah. Um, Other challenges. Um, Got to read my own screen. Oh, I kind of touched on this. This is kind of antiquated in my opinion, but I want to bring it up because the research does bear out in some ways. There is sort of a public perception of men in elementary in general, but also in elementary music. Um, some may question your motive for being in there as, not appropriate. Um, there have been documented cases of people being suspected of inappropriate behavior with elementary children. Um, when I taught in California, there was a first year teacher who actually had an accusation that proved to be untrue, but he lost his job over it. So that's just one thing. Again, kind of judge your situation for what it is. I feel very safe where I teach. I've been at my school for 10 years. Um, but if you're one person cautioned to not ever be like alone with one student in a room, always have the door open. Um, and I think that's just good practice in general, whether you're a man or a woman, um, is just be smart about the social dynamic with young children. Um, and this is something I experienced more in earlier in my career than now, but among colleagues, sometimes these secondary directors look down on elementary teachers as not being as important or as skilled a musician. And that is unfortunate, but true. I don't think I see it anymore. I have a really good working relationship with my feeders. I'm a direct feeder to the middle school and high school. We're like on the same road, boom, boom, boom. And they all respect me and realize that having a good relationship with me is good for their programs and vice versa. So I just wanted to put that in there because it might be maybe somewhere in rural Georgia, attitudes might be different, but I'm generalizing, or other parts of the country. So it's not all just challenges. Teaching EGM as a man is wonderful. I love it. And there are also opportunities. So I get to be a male role model for my students. And I teach in the wealthiest town in Georgia, period. I have a very well off student body with great involved parents. We even have like a dad's group at school. Um, but I've been in other places where dads were not as involved, or other men in the family were not as involved. So I got to be that positive male role model for my students and show them, a little bit more nurturing that they might not have been getting at home, or just what it's like to be a responsible man, and someone to emulate and look up to. I've had students tell me, one made me cry because she wrote me a card at the end of fifth grade about how I was like her second dad. And, seeing students once a week, I don't get as close a relationship, but that was nice to hear from her. Um, Besides being a male role model, um, I love teaching elementary because I get to see that progression of skills from K through 5. Um, Especially in my school, many of my students stay put. We don't have a lot of transiency. But in middle school and in high school, yes, you have the 3 or 4 year progression of skills, but it's way more obvious from kindergarten through fifth grade. And in March, I have two performances for Music in Our Schools Month. I have a kindergarten program at the beginning of March, and then I have a third grade program at the end of March. And I tell the parents, stick around because you'll see the difference. Kindergarten is pretty much stand, sing, be cute. And third grade, I'm doing very little of the music playing, and it's mostly them. It's a lot of work, but seeing that progression of skills over time is just really rewarding, and it's an opportunity to me. Another opportunity is I think there's greater life-work balance in elementary than there is in secondary, especially if you're a high school band director during football season, um, or during LGPE time where you're preparing for those. Elementary, I don't have to be at extra practices, or at football games, or doing the musical, or all those extra opportunities. Um, it's mostly the day job, and I might have after school things once a week, but the concerts are pretty much just a few times a year. So for me, that gives me a greater life-work balance, and I get to enjoy my personal life along with my work life. Sorry, got to move along. Another opportunity. Oh, I touched on this earlier. The variety of things that you get to teach in elementary, for me, personal. I love that I get to sing and play instruments and tell stories and create things and move and just whatever is music, I get to do that. And that's what I love about teaching elementary music, specifically as an ORF practitioner. That's my thing. Um, the variety in elementary, I hats off to the directors, but that's something that I never wanted to be the guy just doing this most of the time. I wanted to be doing more, and it I didn't realize it till I got the job that it really was something for me. So that's an opportunity. And I'm going to quote my student teacher from last spring and just put on here that elementary is more fun. It just is. If you're into it, go for it. If you're a student at GCSU with Dr. HD and you are in the elementary workshops and get that experience and it just vibes with you, pursue it because we need more. We can use everybody. We need more men. It would be great. Um, and yeah, give it a try. I'm going to finish up with a couple of resources for you if you want to take a snapshot of those. Um, there's the American Orff-Schulwerk Association website is www.aosa.org. And they have a ton of resources for people. That's the National and International Association. The local ORF chapters in Georgia are the Atlanta Area ORF chapter at atlantaorf.org. And there is an Augusta Area ORF chapter, and they have a google.com website. They're newly chartered since I think about a year ago. But they're a small but mighty chapter and very enthusiastic to get going.
And by a GC grad.
Yay!
Mm-hmm.
Dr. HD and I were talking earlier about Kodai. There is the Organization of American Kodai Educators, which is oake.org. And Kiga is still around, but it just has a Facebook page. That's the Kodai Educators of Georgia Association. So if you want to look into that about their local workshops. And I highly, highly, highly recommend as a male elementary music teacher, Dr. Rob Amchin. He's a professor at the University of Kentucky, and he teaches the undergraduate music ed courses, but he's a master level certified ORF teacher, and his YouTube channel is videos of him teaching his undergrads and demonstrating the process of teaching elementary students, and they're just wonderful. I, even as a veteran teacher, sometimes look up how did Rob do it because it helps me with my process too. And finally, if you have questions or comments, feel free to reach out to me at DeStafano.dc@fultonschools.org. That's my work email. I am always willing to help answer any questions you have. And come see me at GMEA in January. I will be presenting at 1:30 on Thursday, the first session of the conference. And it's all going to be about children's literature and movement. So I hope that you come on and see me and say hi. And that's all I got. So I'm going to stop sharing. Wait, oh, stop sharing. There we go. Yes. And I'll turn it back over to Dr. Holmes-Davis.
All right, thank you so much, David. I'm so glad that in your experience and perspective that, the gendered issues that we might have had, back in the 90s may not be the gendered issues that we have now.
Absolutely.
Because as a profession, as a band director, I said for years the instruments don't have gender, but we can take it bigger. We don't have gender. We have musicians. That's what we have.
Absolutely. I agree with that totally. And as someone from a band background and in some of my teaching positions in the past, I taught like after school beginning band. So I had my hands in both.
Sure.
And I would always encourage, and regardless of what gender you are, try that.
Yeah.
And my student teaching experience, I'll point this out, back in 1993 in the middle of cornfields in Illinois, the beginning band students, we had, I think, 5 awesome girls playing trombone and 1 okay boy playing the trombone. And it was like, okay, these girls rock, you need a little work. And it was kind of the opposite of what, the stereotype was. And one of the women I work with, her daughter was in ORF ensemble with me. That inspired her to join band in middle school. She started out on trombone and now she's playing tuba.
All right.
Yeah. So awesome.
Yeah, that's the thing. We as professionals, we shape our profession. And if we don't want gender, race, any whatever we don't want disability to be a factor in our profession, then it's up to us just not to let it be a thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so, yeah. So I know, Caitlin, you actually teach elementary. I think you're the only one here today who's actually an elementary teacher. Did you have any ideas or perspectives from the opposite end?
Hey, I will say that it is definitely easier being female and having the range that you know that the kids can identify. So it was interesting hearing your perspective, David, just because my husband was an elementary music teacher for 6 years. Now in the ministry, but he would come home and he would say, it was just hard getting the kids to match my pitch. They were singing an octave higher, and just like I was able to get firsthand like his perspective on it. So it's something that females don't really think about so much. So it was your perspective on that.
Yeah, and David and I have talked about that because I do teach the undergrads who are going into elementary to sing in the same octave, the middle C and the octave above middle C with the students. And the first time I said that, David was like, I don't do that. And I was like, oh, because he's got more experience in elementary than I do. So he's the authority here.
Well, and like I said earlier, it's something I have in my back pocket for when I need it. And when I had a student teacher from Georgia College last spring, that kind of came up, and he saw me singing in my natural voice, and so he would.
Sure.
But then also he was aware, like I am, that like one day that kindergarten class just wasn't getting it, so he just flipped right into falsetto, and they got it.
Yay.
And that's just being aware of how the kids are reacting to you and what they need.
Oh, you would have loved it, David. So, at the beginning of all, maybe you don't know because you didn't do undergrad with me, but at the beginning of all of my music ed classes, we have mini lessons where the students teach a music lesson to one another just to practice planning and teaching. So we had one, she was doing a little vocal matching game. So I told the boys to sing falsetto in the range that the children, and they didn't just sing falsetto, they sang falsetto with vibrato. It was amazing.
Wow. Yeah, I couldn't do that. I'm a clarinet player. That doesn't happen.
Well, I think they were doing it to just be little buttholes because they were like,
Yeah.
But
and they're also like not necessarily male, but I've read things about whether to sing with just a pure tone or vibrato with your students, because there are those little kids who are going to emulate a vibrato, but it's going to be more of like an Ethel Merman false wide vibrato, wah, and or they emulate the pop stars that they listen to, and that's not quite the right kind of voice for a 5-year-old,
Well, and you can tell what mom and dad listen to. You can tell who watches Broadway musicals, and you can tell who listens to folk music, by the kind of vibrato. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I used to have a thing. I taught in the school that my children went to pre-K in, so all of us were in the same building. So I had a rule with the teachers that they had. You don't believe anything that they say, and I won't believe what your children tell me. Because, you learn things about people that you probably shouldn't know when you teach their children.
Yeah, I can understand that. I've taught quite a few teacher kids at my school, and luckily they've been great. Luckily.
My favorite was the day the teacher came to me and she said, Emma told me that she doesn't know where her daddy goes at night, but he's not coming home. And I said, he's playing a musical, and he is coming home just after she goes to bed.
Yeah.
My child is insinuating problems in my marriage that did not exist. All right, do y'all have any questions for David while we've got him? Sorry, back to focus, Tina.
Was there anything in the chat that I missed because I wasn't looking at it?
It was really mostly agreement.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, let me see. Did you have any questions, Queen Esther, that I missed? Oh, allow or deny.
Well, yeah, recently, hello, Mr. DeStafano. Thank you so much for your time that you're taking with us today.
Yeah, just call me Dave. Just call me Dave.
Sure thing, David. Okay, so as you were speaking about your voice and your being able to sing and voice being tired and things of such, it was interesting because recently I heard a presentation on vocal repair and rejuvenation, and the clinician was talking about a couple of supplements that could be used because, see, for me, there's a little history. I've had vocal cord surgery. I've had nodules removed. I've had GERD surgery, where I've had years and years of just burning of my vocal cords. So I find that my vocal cords are more susceptible to the inflammation, in the folds. So my voice gets really, really tired. Like you can even hear it now.
Mhm.
I'm hoarse. So I'm on a plight to find something that can help to repair or rejuvenate my cord so that I can sustain and do what I love to do. And even as a female, I do find challenges, especially with singing soprano, when I used to be able to sing all ranges, like first on down to, like I can really sing low. I mean, I could go from high to, I used to be able to go from high to low. So I want that back. So is there any truth that you know of to the liposomal glutathione and the full spectrum collagen?
I'm going to be honest with you and say those are two things I don't know much about, especially
Okay.
the first one I have never heard of, because I only know what I know, and
Okay.
I sympathize with your plight to get your voice healed properly so that you can use it again.
Appreciate that.
But the only thing I know is um, singing less and letting, don't sing with the students, and that's really hard sometimes, but sing for the students, but not with the students. And I use the common, like, rote teaching, I sing, you sing, I sing, you sing, and build it. But at a certain point where they're independent, I just will tell them, I'm not going to sing for you anymore. You know this song. And if you're not going to sing it, then I guess we don't get to play the game, and I just kind of tease them that way. And then suddenly they're all singing because they want to play the game. That's part of it. But yeah, I don't have anything as far as specifically being able to repair your voice. That's not my area of
Okay.
expertise. Sorry.
Right. Not a problem. Thank you.
Sure.
If I could correct, I'm sorry. I
No,
don't
go ahead.
want to be that person that I will say too, if you could find any sort of amplification, like a lapel mic or anything like that that you could use in the room, I found that really helps. So if you could find a system like that. Also, I know this sounds really minuscule, but I am someone who drinks coffee 24/7, like all day. I'll brew a pot, and like by the time I leave school, like it'll be gone. And I've noticed that laying off of coffee is like the biggest voice saver, and it seems like something that's not a big deal. But I don't know if you're a big coffee drinker.
I will drink, and recently I've drank more coffee because I've been trying to stay awake for these few little assignments Dr. Tina Holmes-Davis is giving us.
don't blame me.
But just a few. But yeah, I'm not a big coffee drinker where I'm drinking 2 and 3 cups a day. If I had to gauge on a 7-day week, I think 3 to 5 mornings out of the week, I'll have either a cup or I really don't even finish it sometimes. So I wouldn't say that I don't think I'm a big coffee drinker. I just think it's all of the detriment that my vocal cords have undergone between the 2 surgeries and not being able to rest my voice. We're having 8 back-to-back classes a day. And I do have a microphone in the room. I do want a lapel mic because I don't want to have to just stand at the microphone stand. But this is a school where they have not had chorus for 6 years. So these students don't know, well, they're learning now because I'm there, but they didn't even know that chorus meant, oh, you mean we have to sing here? Oh, no. I'm not singing. I don't sing. I don't do that. Miss Covington. Oh, we got to sing in front of people. I'm not doing that, Miss Covington. now they're getting more used to the idea of singing, but I'm having to at least introduce the idea of singing to them.
Do you teach elementary or middle?
Middle
Okay.
school.
Because from an elementary perspective, I would say there are a lot of things you can do, like teach without even speaking. And you know, I don't know how you would do that in a middle school choral setting where the voice is the thing. But there might be also, I'm just trying to brainstorm on the fly. Are there ways that you could teach rhythm skills or things like that for without speaking, but just like resting the voice and having students maybe clap patterns or present them and ready, steady, here you go, and they do something. Just I don't know. I'm trying to give you an opportunity where you could rest your voice, even if it's just for a few minutes between classes, and start off with that kind of skill drill where it's less vocally intensive.
And building off of that, if you don't mind, could you also use, David mentioned in his presentation that even as a substitute for the falsetto voice, you can use quality recordings of children's choirs. So, maybe instead of you singing and you demonstrating, you could include a quality recording of a middle school choir, along with the amplification, the microphone that Caitlin suggested. These things might get you on the right track anyway.
Well, I appreciate that too. I actually thought about doing that at the beginning of the school year, and it's like, they're not going to respect me if I just come in here and just play a bunch of videos or recordings or whatever. But now I'm beyond that, because now I really do want to repair, restore, rejuvenate my
And
vocal
remember,
cords. So all of these.
remember, don't be a slave to anything. Use it as a tool. Don't let it run your classroom.
Right, for sure.
Okay.
Like I know that I have a recorded vocal warm up that I have at my school. I don't use it. I prefer to do it myself. But there are quality vocal warm ups that you could just put on, and that would lead your students at least through the warm up phase, and you're not using your voice as much.
Right. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Definitely will consider.
All right, Victoria and Solange. Solange, I know you're piano, but are you planning to teach elementary or choir?
My aspiration will be to teach middle school choir.
Okay. Do you have any questions about anything that David has presented today?
Okay. There are a lot of things to learn.
And Victoria, I know you're strings, but you and Solange have been very quiet. So if y'all have anything, please go ahead.
There is one thing I do agree, like the personality. I'm in the elementary school at Sarah Hart Mentor in Fayetteville, and just going through the process, I'm the world language para. That I actually prefer middle school students, because my previous position was a ECS paraprofessional at a Rising Star, and just going through the classes, I see kindergarten through 5th grade for world language, and I think just because I wasn't really sure, I never really had that experience of going into the classes for all those grade levels, and I do agree with that. Once you kind of start teaching and teaching methods, you kind of discover, well, I thought I wanted to do this grade level, but I'm actually better and prefer a different grade level. And I want to do strings, middle school strings. I just feel like, even though I've never taught in the high school, I like the middle school range. I like the beginners, just teaching them how to start on their instruments, and then just kind of, here you go, just pass them on to the next high school where they can just do a whole lot more things. And I think sometimes it could be a detriment, and that's what I'm kind of realizing now, trying to, when administration kind of forces a Spanish program when it shouldn't have been a Spanish program in kindergarten for the semester, it's almost like a detriment to not only to the staff but to the students when there's not a match when it comes to either the subject matter or the teaching personality. Like if a teacher really wanted to do middle school, but they're in high school, or a high school teacher wanted to be a high school. Just it's almost like you always have to, I feel like you have to discover yourself, and that way you're not resenting. I'm not sure if I'm like wording it right, like a resenting yourself or resenting, and it's like you don't want to force something that's not really working to try to work.
Well, I support that perspective very much. And like I was lucky that the first job I was offered was elementary, and I didn't realize that I loved it. Um, and I fell into it. And it was it was not like the best year ever. There was a huge learning curve, but all those little moments that were wonderful was what kept me in it. And I know that, just like I said, from my student teaching perspective, like of 5th through 12th grade, I did okay with high school. I did okay with middle school, but the younger was just more suited toward me. And I did have field experiences where I observed 1st grade and 4th grade, but I didn't actually get to teach them. And I just remember even way back then thinking, this is kind of neat. This is kind of fun. It's just, it was more, to me, it was more fun than serious. And it was just a different mindset. And I unfortunately didn't have that person who said, well, okay, sure, spend some time in elementary. I was basically told, no, you're going to be a band director, so don't think about that.
You to be a band director, yeah.
Right. And so I just, I think you're really good at being self-aware of what works for you. And luckily, going through the Georgia College program with Dr. HD, you have those experiences. And I wish I'd had the exposure early on instead of, after graduation, not going into teaching for a few years. And then, I graduated in 93, but I didn't start until 97. And I had to spend a few years kind of figuring out what I really wanted to do.
Yeah.
But, just being self-aware, and like Dr. HD said, you're not married to a job. If you find yourself in a situation that is not right for you, you will know it. And there will be other jobs.
And you can move, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, even the fact that I focused so hard on having a distinct elementary track at our undergraduate and graduate level comes out of that, it wasn't there for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was a middle school band director forever, and I was actually in a system that was known for micromanaging. They didn't, the administration, it was Clayton County back in the accreditation question days. So the administration in Clayton County didn't have their act together. And we were actually under fire 2 separate times while I was there for our accreditation, because of not anything in the classroom. None of the teachers, principals, or students were in trouble. It was the upper management. But because of that upper management, we had a culture of micromanaging. And since I didn't know better and I had only taught middle school band my entire time, I thought that there was something wrong with middle school band. So I did move into Rockdale County for a couple of years and teach elementary school. And I got there and I had resources for 1st through 5th grade, nothing for kindergarten. I had to call one of my SAI sisters who taught in the county and go, send me everything you have for kindergarten. So what she sent me was Fire Robin, First Days of Preschool and Beyond, which saved my career. But I realized then that nothing, even elementary music techniques in college, prepared me to actually teach elementary school.
Right.
So when I got the job and I got the chance to shape educational program, I said, no, elementary school teachers don't need secondary conducting. What they do need is guitar. And, so I was able to structure elementary programs that I hope are going to prepare our elementary teachers to teach elementary school. Do y'all have any other questions? We have just a couple minutes left before our time runs out.
I do have one. This is Caitlin. My husband seemed to have more of an ease with classroom management, just being a male. And I was just wondering, like, from your perspective, like, was it or is it easier, I guess, compared to some of the female teachers in the school?
Um, yes and no. There are times like more so with the younger kids, where they just respond differently to me because I am a man. And that comes down to traditional, male, female, home parent dynamics. Whereas a lot of times traditionally the man, the dad is the authority and, the mom is more the nurturer. But um, in some instances, it's been like they are better for their teacher than they are for me because they only see me once a week, and it's a different classroom, and so they think they will test the waters. But I know that when I have lunch duty once a week and I go in the cafeteria, um, when I'm in the cafeteria on Monday with the other two lunch monitors who have that duty every day, um, they will talk to me and say they behave differently on Monday when you're here. Because I know all the students, they all know me, and I'm a man. And I'm older too. So for whatever reason, that is something they respond to. But yeah, there is a little bit of that. And I'm not I'm very structured in my classroom despite being an ORF teacher and kind of free in that aspect. But you got to be very organized and structured to teach effectively in kinder. And I think students need that kind of structure. And that's more of like some classes come in and you can tell that there's not that kind of structure in their classroom. And I don't think that's more male, female, that's more just teacher to teacher, of what your management style is. But there is a bit of the male vibe there that students respond to more. I don't know. They just, there's that coach, there's that dad, there's that male authority that they just perceive from me. Yeah.
All right. So we're actually running out of time, but with that, I want to segue into encouraging y'all to come out on, I'm thinking this is October 28th. Mandy Gunter, who is another Atlanta ORF area.
He's incredible.
She's a past president of the Atlanta ORF Association, but she's an elementary teacher in Gwinnett, and she's going to present on planning and preparation in the elementary school during this time on October 28th. And we did that because a few of our people who decided to student teach in elementary rather than secondary seemed to think it was because it was easier. And then they got they got eaten alive by elementary students because it's actually harder to plan and be prepared to teach elementary school in some ways.
Yeah, 6th grade levels.
Yes. So and then, you can't just walk in with the book and read it. You have to have everything memorized and all of the things cut out and the manipulatives put out. And so
there's a lot.
Yeah, we're specifically going to look at that from the elementary teacher perspective. And go ahead, Solange.
I never conducted a choir. Should I have to use batons or with my fingers? Or
You mean in elementary or just in general?
for middle? I'm saying for middle school choirs.
That generally seems to be up to you.
And direct.
Sorry, that generally seems to be up to the director and it depends on what you're doing. Like some will use a baton in certain situations and hands in another.
Yeah. Okay. The middle school director, right, that I feed to, she mostly does not use a baton, but like Dr. HD said, that's a personal choice. I don't, but I'm teaching elementary. My ORF ensemble, I barely even direct. It's just kind of just giving them entrances, I still have my wonderful baton that my cooperating teacher gave me in 1993 when I graduated, and it's been used probably 5 times.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank y'all so much and have a wonderful weekend. I will see many of you next week. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks for your time. Bye-bye.
See you in
Thank you.
January.